Good morning, VGC. Pastor Darryl here, excited to be with you and just to come and to share God's word with you once again. As we do each Sunday before we get started, I want to make sure that we give our roll call. And so no matter where you're at, here in the valley or outside of the valley, just take a moment to drop your location in the chat box. I'm Darryl Morrison, as I said, and I'm coming to you from Mesa over by the Orange Grove. If you're a first-time guest, we want to say thank you so much for being here with us as well. And we pray that you would enjoy yourself. There's a button up at the top that says new here. Go ahead and click that so that we can know that you're here with us, and we would love to be able to connect with you and hopefully send you something just to give you our thanks and gratitude for joining us this morning. So we are going to continue in our Proverbs series, and last week, as I said, it was a kind of heavy one, and I tried my best to make it as light as I possibly could, but we are going to continue in our Proverbs series, and we're going to join together in Proverbs chapter 6. For any of y'all who are new here, we have just been taking a walk through the book of Proverbs, verse by verse and chapter by chapter, just to learn as it relates to wisdom. And so last week when we shared, we talked about the lesson to live by, and we talked about ultimately the things that we believe that can really kind of stop us from continuing on in our spiritual legacy. We believe that God has a spiritual legacy that he's left behind so that we can live a life of seeking wisdom. And we called that pitfalls. And so today we're going to focus on Proverbs chapter 6. And to be honest with you, I had a number of titles that I really wrestled with back and forth. And ultimately I settled in on this title. And this title is called Surety. So everybody say surety. Okay, I struggle with saying that, and so you don't have to worry if you didn't. But we're going to join together in Proverbs chapter 6, and it is called the lesson of surety. It could have been practical wisdom. It could have been practical warnings. We could have called it boundaries. There are a number of things that we really could have focused on, but we're going to focus on the actual word that was given to us, and that was called surety. So let's read together. Proverbs chapter 6, verses 1 through 5 is where we'll focus. Here, Solomon is speaking, and he says, "My son, if you become surety to your friend, if you have shaken hands in a pledge for a stranger, you are snared by your words, by the words of your mouth. You are taken by the words of your mouth. So do this, my son, and deliver yourself, for you have come into the hand of your friend. Go, humble yourself. Plead with your friend. Give no sleep to your eyes, nor slumber to your eyelids. Deliver yourself like a gazelle from the hands of the hunter, and like a bird from the hand of the fowler." God, I pray that you bless us today as we study your word. We believe, God, that what you give us is God-breathed. Your word is infallible, and we believe that it comes directly from you. And so what you give us, God, we receive as something supernatural. We thank you, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen. As I've already said, last week was more about pitfalls. This week we begin to transition, and Solomon begins to give his son very practical wisdom. Here in particular, it's actually practical warnings. And he's talking to his son, and I believe that he begins to move us from, as we study God's word, a lot of times we're looking for things that are so supernatural. But I believe here he's moving them into some very natural conversations. That wisdom, although it has so many spiritual ramifications and it has deep knowledge, there are also some very practical things that we can receive. Practical lessons, but here also practical warnings. So some of the words that you'll probably think about when we go through this study, I want you to think about being liable or liability. It's something that when we talk about this lesson, it's about keeping your word and how your word has to keep you. Solomon began to speak to his son, and he spoke to his son concerning his friends, finances, and what I call business infidelity. That means being unfaithful. And when there's unfaithfulness in business, then someone has to pay for it. It means that maybe someone has done something that they cannot cover. And so I felt like to give you a clear understanding of this, it would be very important for me to start first and foremost with my thrust statement. Because as I said, I believe this lesson is truly a lesson of learning for us. I don't know if it's one particularly that's going to be so much about preaching. I don't know if there's going to be deep revelation. And so I believe this one is really about learning. But I believe wisdom does have something to share with us, and wisdom has something to teach us. And so my thrust statement for us today is wisdom has something to teach us about our friends, our finances, and business infidelity. So about our friends, our finances, and business infidelity. So let's dive right into this, and let's begin to understand from Solomon what he was sharing with his son. So we're going to focus again on verses 1 and 2. He says, "My son, if you become surety for your friend, if you have shaken hands in a pledge for a stranger." Listen to what this says, because as I begin to look at this, I was not very clear in my understanding of what surety was. As a matter of fact, if any of you all know what surety is, and you can just go ahead and put it in the chat box, that'd be awesome. Because I really didn't know what surety was. I kind of had a clue of what it meant, but I felt like it would be very advantageous to all of us if we studied what this means. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to understand what surety is. And I put it like this: surety is when you bind yourself for someone else. So surety, binding yourself for someone else. Here's the definition of surety. And this comes from business and financial terms. Surety, it's called a surety bond or a guarantee. It involves a promise by one party to assure responsibility for the debt obligation of a borrower if the borrower defaults. In layman's term, I had to write this down for myself. It means that when someone else takes full responsibility for another person, should that person default. And I thought about some of these words that will go with it so that we can understand even better. It's when someone makes a pledge for someone else. It's when you become a guarantor or a guarantor for someone else. And this term, many of us have heard, is when you become a co-signer. I want to leave you with this when we talk about the definition. When we talk about this definition, it means that you've bound yourself by your bond or by your promise to cover the default and the fault of another. So here, Solomon speaks to his son, and he's given him very, very practical wisdom, and he's given him a warning. And he's saying this: son, make sure you don't do this. Make sure you don't co-sign for someone else. And I see this from the standpoint of business. I see this from the standpoint of finances. I see this from the standpoint of relationships, and I believe that that's what he's talking about. We talked about how leaving a legacy talks about how we do what best we possibly can to live a certain way so that our kids can have a future. And I believe here when we talk about surety, he's talking about now, I want to make sure that you do your best not to derail yourself from your financial future as well. And one of the ways that you can do that is by co-signing. Co-signing is a word that we hear quite often, but I don't think we've ever really thought of it from this standpoint. When you co-sign, it's different from when you co-sign or you make a pledge in this instance, or when there's surety, as we speak about in this instance, it's very different from a promise. You know, because a promise basically speaks to this. It says that I can assure you that I am going to do what I agreed to do. Okay? That's a promise. Surety basically says this: I can assure you that I am going to do, or I can do what this person cannot do. And in essence, what you're doing is you're taking responsibility and ownership. You are pledging responsibility and ownership, not just based on a person's ability to do something, but even more so, you're placing assurance on yourself for a person who cannot do something. I thought about this for a long time. And I said, what would that look like? And how would that really come about? And there were a few things that I thought about relationally that I thought would at least give me a sense of understanding. It's like me paying for my daughter's weddings. And at the same time, I say, now here's the money for the divorce. It's as if I'm saying that I can stand and I can cover you as you take this step into a commitment, but I can also cover you when you can't. And I want to leave you with this because I think this is something that really registered in my heart. There's only one person who can do that, and that's Jesus. There's like only one person who has the power and the authority to cover and to keep us not only in the things that we can do, but to keep us in the things that we can't. And Solomon seemed to understand that should his son find himself in this situation, that what he knows is a good act of kindness will ultimately end up in something that is far different. He tells him, surety is something that you shouldn't do. And point 2, he says it like this: don't do it, because she or he has you. Listen to verse 2 and 3. See, when you allow yourself to become the guarantor, the bond, and the one responsible for another person's debt, then you become obligated to the creditor on behalf of them. And he says this, don't do this. But the question is why? Why not? Because when you think about relationships, even when you think about business, when there's a guarantor, it means that whoever the creditor is for certain that the deal, no matter who messes up, is going to be covered. But he says, don't do it. I thought about this because when we leased this building here, as we went through this entire process of raising money and redoing everything on the inside, one thing that was going to cancel the contract is if we did not have a guarantor. And they were basically saying, we need to find somebody who is going to make sure that should you all default on your lease, that person is going to cover every payment, every bill, everything that is associated with this lease. And of course, I looked high and low to see if somebody would do that. It's not surprising to me, I couldn't find anybody. So ultimately, the only guarantor that I could find for this building was me. So I had to bank on me being credible enough to do what I said I was going to do. See, that was a promise, and I was a guarantor for myself. But what would it look like if I went to a friend and I said, I'm getting ready to purchase this, I'm getting ready to lease this building for the next 4 to 5 years, and I need you to sign on the dotted line to say that no matter what happens, I will cover for Darryl. I got a lot of great friends. I got a lot of good friends. I got friends who have money, but none of them were willing to be surety in this instance. Because it's not just about a business transaction. It's about the relationship. So he tells his son, point number 2, don't do it. And why? Because he or she has you. Verse 2. See, when this takes place and you allow yourself to pledge for a friend, or you become surety for a friend or a neighbor, here's what happens to you. You are snared by the words of your mouth. You are taken by the words of your mouth. So do this, my son, and deliver yourself. For you have come into the hand of your friend. See, when we begin to co-sign and we begin to pledge on the behalf of someone else, our very words and our pledge and our commitment now become our snare. We now are taken, or we are caught by our very words. They become our trap. It goes on and it says in verse 3a, for you have come into the hands of your friend, which I thought was quite fascinating, because I thought to myself, surely the one who I will be bound to and I will be caught by and I will be stuck with would be the creditor. But this is so good, because although you are paying the creditor for the debt of someone else, Every time you pay that debt, it reminds you of the fault and the default of your friend. And your friend, they have you. They got you. Every time you have to cover for someone else, every time you have to pay for someone else, every time you have to give of yours for someone else, and it's not because of their character being so great, and it's not even because of their character being bad, it's because of their fault and their default. That something went awry. And so now they have you. And so when you now co-sign, what you're really signing up for is you're signing up for their mess. You're paying for their mess. You're paying for their problems. You're paying for the things that they couldn't fix. And all of us, we know this. Listen, if I think that I can co-sign for somebody and I may have something, not once am I ever thinking that this person may come up against with any challenges. Not once am I thinking that maybe life can give them a turn. Not once am I thinking that there is anything that could get in the way or inhibit their ability to do what they said they would do. Not once did I think that there's anything character-wise that would get in the way. But all of us know that life happens. All of us know that challenges come, and here the Father's telling him, son, if you want to have relational longevity, if you want to have business longevity, if you want to have financial longevity, don't go co-signing for everybody. Don't co-sign for a friend. Make sure that, yes, if you can't just give it to them just to give it to them, then don't sign off for it. Don't now become the person who now has to pay month in and month out the bills of somebody else's problems and the bills of somebody else's pain and the bills of somebody else's situation. He said, don't do it, because then they have you. They have you. You're always bound to that. You're always kept to that. Every time you have to pay, every time you have to cover, you're reminded not of what you did wrong, but maybe what somebody else messed up on. And so he said, don't do that, because then you're trapped. You're caught. You're in a snare. You can't let go. As a matter of fact, it has you. It's taken you. And you've come into the very hand of your friend. Another thing I noticed about this is that he didn't say family. But can I add a caveat? Be careful even then, even if it's family, who you even consider providing surety for. Because when it comes down to it, we're not God. We're not Jesus. Only Jesus can save us out of the mess that we get ourselves in. And we shouldn't have a Messiah complex, even with our own family, because we will not be able to save everyone. And so he tells us, don't do that. Point number 3. Just in case you have, and just in case you do, and just in case you find yourself in that situation, point number 3 says this: deliver yourself. Verse 3 and 5. Deliver yourself. And I put in there, and do it with urgency. Deliver yourself. Should you find yourself bound and locked in into a commitment, or bound and locked into somebody else's faults, and bound and locked into somebody else's mess, and you find yourself paying for it, you do whatever you possibly can to rid yourself and to separate yourself from it. You do whatever you possibly can to right what has been wrong. You do whatever you possibly can to now make good the faults and the defaults. You do whatever you possibly can. And he tells us this. He says, deliver yourself. This is the one time where I see in the Bible where it's very clear. God is giving you the opportunity to deliver yourself. See, I can deliver myself from alcoholism, and I can deliver myself from lust, and I can deliver myself from addictions, and I can deliver myself from my past, and I can deliver myself from the hurt and the pain that I caused. But one thing that I can do is I can deliver myself from some of the unwise decisions and the unwise commitments that I've made. Now, it might require some work, but some of us, when we think about the wisdom of God, there are some decisions that have lingered that God may be telling us, you need to go ahead and you need to deliver yourself from that. You may have been carrying a bad debt. You might have been carrying a bad relationship because of a commitment that you made with somebody. You might be carrying some pain from something that you signed or you co-signed on. But God says, here's the opportunity for you to deliver yourself. Deliver yourself. Separate yourself from it, because it's not about the business agreement. It's also about the relational strain and the relational pain that comes with these types of deals. It's not about just somebody impeding your progress for your future, but it's about them halting you in your own spiritual growth. Because when we have these pains and we have these issues relationally and we have these things that hold on to us, business, finances, whatever we want to call them, then those are the things that God wants to make sure that in a very natural way that you rid yourself of. Deliver yourself from this. Deliver yourself. God tells you deliver yourself. Now, Pastor Darryl, how do you do it? First, I said do it with urgency, but now let's look at it. Verse 3. So do this, my son. Deliver yourself. See, the reason why you deliver yourself is because now you've come into the hands of your friend. You are bound. You are ensnared. You are trapped. So you need to deliver yourself. And what I found quite fascinating, and I don't even know if I was thrilled by this, the first way that you deliver yourself is by humbling yourself. It says, walk in humility. Go back to that very friend, and you go and you humble yourself. And of course, I don't like this. Why do I have to humble myself for somebody else who I laid on the line my commitment and my devotion to them, and then they messed it up? Humble yourself. Because it takes humility, truth be told. Here's the reason why it takes humility, because sometimes pride is the thing that got us in it. Because we thought we could fix it. We thought we could do it. We thought that we knew enough about this person to where they were good for it. And then we allowed pride to cause us to step into something that God never intended or called us to step into. God has never called you to take on the debt and the burden of somebody else. He called his son, Jesus Christ, to do that. He's never called you to do that. And so when we find ourselves doing it, many times, even if we're not aware, unknowingly, we are stepping in with pride because we say, we can do it. So now you have to go back to the very person who you tried to help, and you got to humble yourself. And you got to humble yourself to the point to where you ask them, will you now take on the responsibility? Listen, will you now take on the responsibility that I made? I made this responsibility and this commitment to you, but can you take it? See, that's why you got to be humble. Because pride made you think that you could do it on your own, and now you realize God never wanted you to do it. But should there be issue, then you have to be diligent. You have to be diligent. Listen to what it says. It says now, humble yourself, plead with your friend. See, humility makes you plead. Verse 4, this is where diligence comes in. Give no sleep to your eyes, nor slumber to your eyelids, which means you need to be diligent. You need to be persistent. And as I studied this, I found this, that the persistence that they're speaking about is really shared in a story in Luke chapter 18, verses 1 through 6. Luke chapter 18, verses 1 through 6. I'll read it to you, and I'm going to give you three things that really speaks to the diligence that will produce what only God can produce. Then he spoke a parable to them, and here Jesus was speaking to his disciples, and he was actually speaking to them about the manner in which they should pray and how they should pray without ceasing, okay? And so he says he speaks to them that the men always ought to pray and not lose heart, saying there was in a certain city a judge, and this judge did not fear God, nor did he regard man. Now, there was a widow in that city, and she came to the judge saying, get justice for me from my adversary. Listen to what the judge said in verse 4. And he would not for a while. But afterwards, he said within himself, even though I do not fear God, nor do I regard man, yet because this widow, she troubles me, I will avenge her, lest by her continual coming, she wearies me. So here when we talk about being diligent, it means that there are times when you have to keep going back and you have to keep going back. And it might seem that you're bothering people and it might seem that you're troubling someone, but you got to continue and you got to keep coming, and it might weary everybody else, but it is going to get the results that you need. If you're truly going to deliver yourself, it might require some work. It might weary somebody else, but we want it to be like this judge. Listen, I am going to change my mind because I do not want this person to keep coming back over and over again, bothering me with the same thing. I know in my life there was a time in which I felt like I heard from God that there were some things that I wanted to do. And then I stepped into those situations and I'm thinking on my own that I can do it on my own because I felt like it was from God. And then I realized that that really wasn't from God. But at that point, there were commitments that I had made and there were things that I couldn't keep myself to. And I actually had to go back and I had to humble myself. And I had to keep going back until the issue began to turn. Until the issue began to turn. It was not out of pride, but it was out of humility because I realized I had walked into these things and I had stepped into these things. One time I bought a car without speaking to my wife. And I would encourage all of you men never to do that. We were probably honestly, I think all of our children were born at this time. And we had conversations about a vehicle. But for some reason, in my mind's eye, I thought that a little 2-door coupe Honda on rims with a V8 engine would be just the right vehicle. So I signed on the papers and I said, I got this covered. And I drive home. And in my excitement, I pull up and my wife looks at me like I'm crazy and was like, well, what is this? And I said, well, I bought us a car. And it was very clear that Joan was not going to be the source of surety for me in this situation. And so what she did is she said, well, who did you buy the car for? I said, us. She said, you know, it only got 2 real seats in here. And because see, I had good intentions, just so you know. I had real good intentions. I actually did think that this would be a good family car. I don't know why, but then I realized I was in a mess. And so my wife, with her loving disposition, she just looked at me very calmly and she said, you need to take that back. I said, no, I can't do that. I signed on the line. She said, no, you need to take that back. I said, no, I can't do that because see, I signed, I'm making payments and I signed. She said, no, I don't know what you're going to do, but I encourage you to leave now and go take that car back. And I got into that nice little old car, and boy, it was so nice. And I was kind of sad that I was going to have to take it back. And so I humbly go to the place and I tell them, listen, could y'all please take this car back? They said, nope. I said, no, you don't understand. I wasn't in my right mind when I bought this car. No, you can't. No. So then I kind of left for a minute, and then I came back again. I said, no, I got to be a little bit more persistent. I got to stick with this. No, can you please take this car back? And it took us probably about a week to finally get this thing off of us. Here's the beauty of it. We finally gave them the car back, and they kept my down payment. They kept my money. And that was humility at its best, because the decision that I had made, nobody else could cover but me. And I feel like we try our best to cover someone else, but God says, even in that, if you're going to make it right, you got to be humble and you got to be diligent. You got to go back and you got to see, is there any way in which this can be made right? Now, lastly, if humility doesn't work, and diligence doesn't work, then it may require desperation. To deliver yourself, it may require desperation. I'm going to read this verse, and then if we can show this video, I would love for us to do that. So we already saw in verse 3, it says, deliver yourself, right? Now verse 5 says again, deliver yourself. But here's the way you're supposed to deliver yourself. Should you find yourself bound relationally? Should you find yourself bound financially? Should you find yourself bound in some business commitment that you recognize that you don't have the authority or the power to cover should they mess up? And you've tried your best to be humble, and you've done everything that you could in your diligence, and it still doesn't work, then you must be desperate. Type in there desperation. So let's watch this video if we can. I love this. I love that video because remember what that verse said. Listen, you need to deliver yourself. And when you deliver yourself, you need to deliver yourself like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter. And so here you see that a cheetah was hunting for a gazelle. And do you see that gazelle? That gazelle was doing everything that it possibly could to make sure that it was delivered. That gazelle felt like there was more to his life or her life. That gazelle felt like, man, I got to be desperate on this situation. That gazelle was turning and cutting and doing everything that was necessary to make sure that they were delivered from the hands of the hunter. And we don't understand. We bind ourselves and we commit ourselves and we give ourselves and we are trapped and ensnared by things that God just doesn't want us to be ensnared and trapped by. I'm not talking about sin now. I'm talking about the commitments that we make that we know we cannot keep. I'm talking about the pride that we have that we know that we cannot cover. And so God wants to let you know, when you get in those situations, hey, listen, after you humbled yourself and that didn't work, maybe you were diligent and it still didn't work. You got to be desperate. You got to do whatever you possibly can to make sure that you begin to break the bind and the snare that is trying to hold you captive. Why do I think this is so important? Two reasons that I think is very important. Because if you do not do these things, then you will be indebted. If you do not do these things, then you will find yourself and your future locked up because you're indebted to your past and to your problems. And then I also think that there are some spiritual ramifications as well. I think this gives us a true picture of who Christ is. See, when I look at this, this is a beautiful story of how we can allow ourselves through humility and through diligence and through desperation and not doing things that we shouldn't do. We can find ourselves released from things that hold us up, released from agreements, released from promises, released from co-signing on things that we never had the ability to cover. But for some reason, we thought that maybe we could, or we thought that we believe enough in this person or this person's character is good enough, not knowing that they may go through challenges. But the beautiful thing is that it also gives me a beautiful picture of Jesus. And if I could tie this thing together, I think this gives me one of the most beautiful pictures of Jesus. It lets me know that there was somebody who stood there and understood that Darryl Morrison was going to step into things that he had no ability to be able to cover. He was going to commit himself to a covenant that he could not keep on his own. He was going to move into relationship with sin even though he said he wouldn't. He was going to commit his life to Jesus even though he would find himself fallen in sin. And Jesus, then he looks and he sees that there's only one way that this thing could be covered because Darryl cannot cover it on his own. And because there's relationship that I desire to have with Darryl, even though Darryl cannot cover it on his own, I myself, I will be his surety. I will co-sign not only for what his abilities can be and the greatness, but I will co-sign for even his mess. See, I told you I had a lot of friends. They have money, they have the ability to cover, but they are not going to cover my mess. I told you I love my kids, and I'm thinking about paying for my daughter's weddings. Thinking about it. But I tell you what, and paying for their wedding, do you think I want to also finance their divorce? And see, Jesus, what he does is he says this, I know that there are some commitments that you have made with wrong. I may know there are some commitments that you've delved into that have never been about what I could do. And I know those commitments cost a lot. But because I love you so much, I'm going to cover you. I'm going to co-sign for you. I'm going to take this pledge for you. I'm going to make sure that you know how much I believe in you because I will be your surety. And as I look at this as it relates to wisdom, the Father, the human Father, knows how important it is to keep his son's future going in the right path is by not binding yourself and committing yourself and pledging yourself for someone else's mistakes. But Jesus and God in all of his love for us chose knowingly to bind himself, commit himself, and sacrifice his best for all of our mess. When I think about this, it's so beautiful. Because here we have two pictures. And I believe as we look at these two pictures, we must understand ultimately the true authority in all of this. As I summarize this, it's very clear. We must understand what surety is and make sure that we don't find ourselves committing to it. But should we find ourselves doing it, We must do whatever we possibly can to deliver ourselves from something that we cannot keep. And we do that from humility. We do it with diligence. And if necessary, we do it in desperation. But I want to leave you with this, because the picture must be very clear. There are two pictures here. The one that clearly keeps our natural future by us not making commitments that we cannot keep. And the one that keeps our spiritual eternity because of the only one who could keep it. Listen to what I wrote. God sent Jesus Christ to be the one and only guarantor to cover what we could not. He was and is the only one willing and able to pay in full what we should have paid. And since that is the case, remember this: you should never have to attempt to do so. And I'll say it like this for someone else. God is our guarantee, and Jesus is the one who co-signed. He has covered everything for us. And because he has, even when you think you're trying to help someone else, the best thing you can do is let Jesus be the guarantor and the co-signer for them as well. Let's make sure that we don't try to be Messiah when only Jesus can. Surety is left for the Savior, and we are the recipients. Allow him to be the Savior and you to be the recipient. Let's pray. Father, we thank you so much for the opportunity that we have to learn what I believe is a very practical and simple principle, one that may not be highly spiritual, but has deep spiritual ramifications. Lord, when I think about this, I think about the future that we have. And God, I pray that we will labor more in doing what is necessary so that we do not have to rely upon another to cover us. Because should we falter, then it destroys relationships, it destroys friendships, it destroys our future. But when we allow ourselves to be faithful in the small things, then you will give us more. But I also want us to see that in this, that Jesus Christ is the ultimate example of surety and the only example of surety. He keeps the covenant by covering our weaknesses and our mess. There's nothing that we can do without the surety of Jesus Christ. And so in a very practical sense, we thank you, God, that you sent Jesus Christ to cover for us what we could not cover for ourselves. And I pray that we will be reminded of this when we think of ourselves as one who can cover for another what only Jesus Christ can. Thank you, Jesus, for your gift of salvation. Thank you for the debt being fully paid. Thank you that you chose to pledge, to co-sign, and to be surety for us. It is in your precious, magnificent, and glorious name that I pray. Everybody say, amen. I believe that there may be some people here who you understand now that the only way that the mess that you've made can truly be fixed is if you allow Jesus Christ to be your surety. He's pledged his life. He shed his blood so that we could not be bound by the contract of sin, instead be freed by the shedding of his blood. And if that's you and you recognize, hey, I want to make sure that I'm covered, it comes down simply to this. The one thing that makes this different from what we read in surety is Jesus won't beg you if he's already been on the cross. He will not come and beg you. He's already humbled himself enough. If the cross is not good enough to show his humility for you, I don't know if there is anything. If you understand how he humbled himself and he carried this cross, and he died on this cross. And he suffered pain for you and for me. I don't believe there's anything else he's required of. The only thing that is required in this relationship is you saying, Jesus, I turn to you. And if that's what you desire today, I want to pray that prayer for you. Wherever you're at, you can be in your home. You can be sitting before your computer. You may be at work, and you know what? You may be listening to this midweek. Wherever you at, now is the time to allow Christ to satisfy the commitment that he's made with you. And it comes with this. You say, and I turn. So if that's you, and I pray that it is, I pray that it's you. I don't pray that it's somebody else. I don't pray that it's going to be you next week. I pray that right now and in this moment, it is you. And if that's you, and you feel the prompting of God calling you to cover you and to protect you, repeat after me. Dear God, I need you to cover me, my faults, my problems, and all of my mess. I need you to be my surety, to co-sign for all of my calamity, to pledge for all of my problems, and to be the guarantor for all of the things that have gone wrong in my life. And I choose today to turn to you and to offer you all of me, what little bit that it is. Receive me, forgive me, cover me, and restore me. In Jesus' mighty name, I pray. Amen. Well, if you prayed that prayer, you've just entered a relationship with Jesus Christ. And can I be honest with you? He'll take it from here. He'll take it from here. All you have to do is to continue walking with him, growing in him, and knowing him. So we honor you and we say thank God for you. If you just did pray that prayer, please make sure that you click the raise your hand button in the chat area. There it will have a button that says connect with us, and we would love for you to click that button. Fill out that information, and someone on our team will be sure to follow up with you. We believe making commitment to Christ is one of the best decisions you will ever make, not only in this life but for eternity. And so we value that, and we know that heaven does as well. And so you've made a wonderful decision today. It is a life-changing, world-changing, and eternal-changing decision. And I want to applaud you and say God bless you. And thank you so much for doing that. Our team would love to follow up with you. If you have any prayer requests and prayer needs, listen, we have a prayer team that is waiting to connect with and to engage with you. And so if you have prayer requests and prayer needs, now is the best time. Don't wait. Just go ahead and click the prayer button, and our team will be there. They'll take you to a private chat. You two can chat and have an opportunity to pray together for whatever the needs are that are on your heart and on your soul, and we want to make sure we offer you that opportunity. If you're a first-time guest, we're so excited to have you here, and we want you to click the new here button, as I've already said at the beginning. Make sure you click that button and fill out the information, and we want to connect with you. If you're here in the Valley and you don't have a home church, we would love to grow with you in relationship with Christ, because we believe here we're called to grow in our relationship with God as we grow with one another. We believe relationships are essential in this walk with Christ, and we would love to walk with you and you with us as we continue striving to be what God has called us to be. And you can't be, and I can't be what God has called us to be if we do not walk together. So if you're new here, we would love for you to fill out that information. We would love to connect with you. Now's our time to give. So let's go ahead and give God a hand clap of praise. We're excited about this opportunity to give, and we believe that it is something that is not only inspired by us, but also one that inspires God. Our giving is something that we do, not out of obligation, but out of privilege and honor. When we give to God, we honor him with what we believe is wholly his. We, as givers, we give 10% as a tithe because we believe it is wholly his. We offer to him in a gratitude of obedience and thankfulness but not out of obligation. And so if you're a member or an attender here of Valley Gate Church, we would love for you to join with us as we continue to utilize these resources to advance God's kingdom and reaching our communities and even reaching those abroad. And if you're a first-time guest, it's not your responsibility to give. We're just so happy to have you here. And so if you choose to give, you can, but we just want to let you know we're so excited to have you here. Here's the way that we give. You can always go to, there should be in the link, a link that you can give, and also up at the top right-hand corner of the chat screen, you should be able to click the give button, and you'll be instructed on how you can give. You can also text VGC to 77977, and there you'll be given a link to give. And if you have our church app, you can also go there and give. And so God bless you as you give. God, we thank you for those who do give today, and we praise you, God, that we continue to have the opportunity to advance your kingdom through the resources that you've blessed us with. Allow us to be a people who love you so much that we honor you with all that we have. We thank you, Jesus. In your name we pray. Amen. Well, just by way of reminder, I'm so excited for this time that we have together, and I look forward for us to be together as well, once again in person. We are going to be together in person on November 15th. So everybody say the 15th, and more information will be coming. But we had an awesome time back in October as we came together on the 18th, and we celebrated our time together with Christ. And so we obviously will do this social distancing, and so it limits our ability to have many people in the sanctuary. I believe our max capacity is around 65 to 70 people. And so as the time draws near, we want to encourage those who would love to participate and be with us in person to go ahead and sign up so that you can secure your seat. It's an awesome time. We enjoyed it last time being together, and I look forward to doing it again. It is a touchless service and a contactless service, so you'll wear your mask as everybody is asked to do so, and we will refrain from touching. At meet and greet, we wave, and we try our best to make sure that we at least experience God's presence if we're together. And we'll do a few things that we're trying to do a few things that I think are very important, because if we are taking the effort to be here together, there's something about God doing something to us and through us together. And so we've taken a few measures to make sure that while you're here, we may not be able to touch you naturally, but we are going to see God touch you spiritually. And so come and be a part if you can. And if you can't be a part, we still have our online church that is doing great. And so just as we meet like we do right now, I want to encourage you to continue to join with us online, as we truly do believe that this is not just an online service. This is our church. We are church in person, and we are church online. So join us November 15th, and we will be happy to see you, whether it's in person or online. Finally, we have baptisms. We're about to secure the date and the location for our baptisms. And so if there are any people who desire to be baptized, we would love for you to go ahead and just fill out information. There should be a link, or you can just go to info@valleygatechurch.org, and you should be able to find out more information if you just send information requests, send in the email requesting for information. We, once again, will make sure that that is done with social distancing in mind, and the only people who will come in contact will be myself, and I'll make sure that I'm covered properly, and the person who's being baptized, and then those who are there to view. It still will be limited, but we want to make sure we practice social distancing. But the kingdom of God must still be advanced, and we need to make sure that we are still seeing people saved and baptized and filled with God's Spirit. And so we are not going to stop doing that, because I don't think a coronavirus can ever stop the kingdom. And so let's make sure that we understand we are still in this to win it. And we do it together, and we do it by seeing lives change. We do it by seeing people identify with Jesus Christ and being filled with his power. Lastly, 2 p.m. today, VGC Kids Online. I'm so excited for this. I get to teach the kids, and I would love for you all to, if you're parents of elementary age student or a pre-K student, make sure that you get the link. You register your child. You can go to our church app as well, and make sure you register your child because it is truly an awesome time, and we enjoy being with your children. So let's end this with prayer. Father, we thank you so much for this moment that we have together. We honor you. We honor you for the work that you are doing in our church, and we look forward to even more that you will do. VGC, we still may be socially distant in some instances, but listen, I believe this, and God is just confirming that we are drawing spiritually close. We are allowing God to work in us and through us. And so because of that, no matter where we find ourselves, VGC, we are together wherever we are. It's on.